Welcome to this afternoon's webinar. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by three experts today, and I'm going to leave them to do their own introductions. Before I do that, maybe just a bit of an intro as to why we're doing this webinar today. I don't think it probably needs it. I think everyone will be feeling the pinch, not only personally, but in business as well. So we actually wrote a brilliant blog about this, which we'll post in the chat because there's some fantastic stuff in there. But I think it's a very difficult and challenging time for everyone. Just on the back of recovering from a global pandemic, we're now faced with lots of new challenges with energy price increases and food inflation. So I think the stats will come out through the threads and through the webinar, and I want to spend most of the time with the experts that I have here because I'm hopeful that they'll have lots of helpful and practical insights that can help you reduce costs in the business, but really importantly, reduce costs in a way that is in line with the new way that we're managing the businesses now, which is thinking staff well-being at front of mind, work-life balance, all these things that are as important as reducing costs. So without further ado, Campbell, I'm going to start with you. Would you mind just telling us a little bit about what you do and your background and your company and kind of what insight you're hoping to give us today?
Okay, sure. My name is Campbell Asquith. My business is called Food Partners. And in simple terms, we work with our clients to select and maintain a food supplier network. It's really important that that supplier network meets with their quality and service requirements. And the aim of the project is always to deliver material savings, which, as I'm sure you can imagine, in the current climate is a challenge because everything is changing pretty much on a daily basis. I think the important thing is to know that there are lots and lots of sort of food purchasing consultants out there in the marketplace. I like to think that where we differ is that we generate absolutely no income from our suppliers at all. So we work with our clients for our clients. And on this note, we therefore don't have what you would call nominated suppliers. We're quite happy to work with any suppliers. And whilst we have long-standing relationships with many, it doesn't mean that working with us involves a change of supplier. Me and my team have over 100 years of experience doing exactly this. And our clients include everything from sort of 5-star luxury hotels, Michelin star restaurants, premium casual dining groups, and premium pub and bar operators. And we also offer services to our clients in terms of operational efficiencies. So by that, I mean anything that happens to food from its arrival at the back door to money going into the till and making the most of their F&B systems. I hope that kind of explains what we do. And perhaps to sort of move on from that, we are in an extremely challenging time at the moment. The latest RPI figure that I saw is suggesting about 8.6%. Food prices are moving literally on a daily, not even weekly basis. And yet food suppliers are really struggling to get hold of product. They're really struggling to manage their systems in terms of invoicing our clients or the industry as a whole. And I think outside of that, that's obviously incredibly difficult for the clients in terms of managing their processes, managing their menus, budgeting, etc., etc. So I hope that is a reasonable sort of introduction to where we are and what we do.
Very thorough. I've got loads of questions for you, and I feel like we could talk all day about this topic, and it's going to be really interesting for everyone listening. But thank you for the intro, and thank you for making the time as well to join us. We know you're having very busy time, so it's much appreciated. And Peder, right. I'm going to move over to you, and I'll come back to you, Campbell, with the questions. We'll finish off the intros first. Tell us a bit, Peder, about what you do and why this topic is interesting to you today.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Peter, and I'm the co-founder of Compliance, which is one of the products in the Mapal suite. and it's a quite simple product, to be honest. It's digitizing the checklists, the audits, the procedures, the how-tos, basically what all our customers have a way of working that makes them successful. We just help them do that more efficiently. So it's about digitizing and empowering the people who are kind of in the front line, closest to the customer or to the guest, and the people out in the operations, to make life as easy as possible for them, so they can move time from admin to value creating stuff.
Nice.
So that's what we do.
Thank you. And Carlos, lastly, you please.
Thank you, Eli. So my name is Carlos. I am right now the Chief Operating Officer at Mapar Group. And basically, I have the responsibility of global sales and also customer service, thanks to an extraordinary team of people that I have the pleasure to work alongside. And basically, for the last 10 years, I've been witnessing myself the development of our tool. That's our workforce management solution. And I've had the pleasure to work alongside different customers all across Europe, Western Europe, Eastern Europe, Latin America, the US as well, and trying to help them into reducing costs and increasing productivity thanks to technology.
Perfect. Thanks. We're going to dig into that toward the end of the session, Carlos. So maybe again, just to quickly summarize the key areas that we're going to cover today, and kind of the background as to why. So 60% of the hospitality sector is being affected by rising costs. Electricity rates for SMEs have increased by 180% on average between March 21 and March 22. It's absolutely enormous. Gas prices have seen an average hike of 250% during the same time. So astronomical numbers, right? And who would have expected this on the back of a global pandemic? How to make things hard for people to do a good job, right? So maybe if I could just start with you from a food cost perspective, Campbell, what advice are you giving your customers right now? What are the main things they're asking you for, and how are you helping them?
Well, I think the honest answer is expect the unexpected. I think that the question I get asked most often is how much should we budget for food inflation over the course of the next 12 months? And the honest answer is, and I wish it wasn't, but the honest answer is I haven't got a clue. And I honestly don't believe that anybody else has either. And I think that the only realistic action that any of our clients or any operators out there can take is to keep their food offer as flexible as they possibly can, regarding the content of the dishes that are on their menus, which in many instances is quite easy to do, but in many instances it also is incredibly difficult to do. And I think as well as that, give yourself the option to amend the tariffs on your menu and adjust the costings of the dishes on your menu, because we really do not know what is going to happen over the course of the next few months.
And an interesting one you just finished on there, Campbell, that question about adjusting the tariffs. Do you mean by that passing on increases potentially onto customers, or adjust? What do you mean by that?
I think ultimately the cost increases in food product are significant, and they continue to be significant. And restaurants, hotels are continuing to struggle with the other elements like utilities, labor, beverage, everything else is increasing. So absolutely, yes, they need to keep their menus as flexible as they possibly can, and they need to be prepared to adjust the tariffs, because if they don't, they will really struggle to achieve their budgets. They'll struggle to make money.
Yeah. And when you talk about flexible dishes, are you seeing any particular operators doing that well, Campbell?
Yes, I am seeing operators doing that well, and certainly with the people that we're working with, it is a constant sort of part of the agenda.
Nice. Great. And I think the challenges that you talk about, as you say, they're across every single part of the business. The bit that I'm probably closer to is the staff and recruitment side, which is a huge challenge as well, which we won't go into today. But if you couple all of those things together, what I am getting a sense, though, is that customers are aware and are accepting, and maybe I'm wrong and I'm not as at the coal face as others, but that's certainly the sense that I get from all the people that I talk to, are that there is an acceptance that the war in Ukraine, Brexit, post-pandemic, all of these things have had a huge impact on our industry, and there is a level of support to help us overcome that. Would you agree with that, Campbell?
Yes, I absolutely would. I mean, I think that, the positive news is certainly, within the sort of premium casual dining market, the premium pubs and bar operators, they are extremely busy, and doing extremely well in terms of their top line. And I think that certainly I've spent probably 3 days this week with the CEOs of businesses based in the north of England, and I think that the fear that they have at the moment is that as the cost of living hits home, that people may stop going out and enjoying themselves as much as they have been doing really since July the 1st last year, when everything kind of reopened.
Yeah.
So I think that is a worry, but there is huge enthusiasm by what has been achieved over the course of the last 8 months.
Let's hope that rumor that there's a bunch of money saved from people that were not spending any money in lockdown. Let's hope that rumor is true, and there's hordes of money sitting around waiting to be spent in hospitality. Unlikely, but potentially. Peder,
I thought that was an invite, Ellie.
Oh right, yes. I've got hordes of money under my bed. I shouldn't really tell anyone that on YouTube. I'll be getting burgled. Peder, over to you. This is what you do for breakfast, right? You wake up and think about how do you help people save money on and how do they operate more efficiently. So with all the things that Campbell's just talked about, how are you talking to customers about supporting them on making their processes more efficient, and kind of what advice can you give on that?
Yeah, I think it's the topic of the subject, like energy and costs. It's all the same. I mean, it's efficiency to some respect. I mean, you can call it whatever you want, but it's spending your resources where they can be spent most efficiently and doing that. And I think there's actually an opportunity here. I'm not sure if you're allowed to be optimistic, but actually I am. Because previously, when our customers talked about efficiency, employees were thinking like, okay, I'm going to make more money for my company. That's of course nice in theory, but what's in it for me? But now I see a change where a lot of operators actually going into sustainability, and they use the same tools for that. You have waste management or KPIs for waste, which kind of empowers people in the front line to actually measure what they do, and we do an impact. It really works. Predictive maintenance of coolers and freezers, very boring things, but actually if you can prevent them from breaking down, you can make sure they consume less energy. That's good for the environment, and it, by the way, also saves cost. So it's a bit about starting with the why. I think, why are we doing this? It's exactly the same tasks that we digitize, but the reason for doing it and the message is quite different, and it works so much better because people feel that they're empowered to make a change instead of forced to make money for the employers, even though it's the same result.
Yeah, so, I agree. It's it's just a different messaging, but exactly the same output.
Yeah, you do the same thing.
Yeah, love it. Do you see, Peder, any change in energy consumption when tools like compliance are introduced? Is that something that your customers experience?
Absolutely, because they don't really have a choice. They have to cut down on costs. And one typical thing is about just whatever you call it, doing audits or regional manager visits when you travel around to the sites. Something that you can drastically reduce if you let people do digital audits, use the mobile phones to capture how things look and with video or photos. So maybe you don't have to visit each site each week by car. Maybe you can visit 1/10 of the sites when needed, when the their own audit maybe is not good enough. So there's a lot of there are no simple solutions, but a lot of small things like that that digital tools can help out with.
And so what are the main cost benefits that you see then if people are introducing technology to streamline and improve efficiencies? What are the main cost benefits that people get from that?
Yeah, I think it's a palette of many. So there is not one big one. It's now the energy consumption. It's the lifespan of equipment serving that. Maybe you don't see it every day, but it's a huge cost involved in that. It's the traveling, just the cost of traveling, fuel, tickets, work time, all that. It's waste, of course. If you can reduce waste by 10% or 5%, that's a lot of money. A food that is hard to buy, that you don't have to throw away. So it's all of those. It's not really, unfortunately, there's no one silver bullet. It's maybe 20 or 30. But you need to have, but it's easier if you have a system that is centrally controlled, so you can tune this. So be like the air traffic controller of your business and turn these dials and see what makes results. So it's more of a continuous work, not one single shot.
Yeah. And obviously, interesting one for you, Campbell. The three of us obviously work in technology. So we see this all the time. And we've certainly seen a huge rise in the interest and the understanding and knowledge that it's kind of the only way now to do business is with great infrastructure and technology in behind you. I'm interested to hear from your side. Obviously, that's a different field from you. Have you seen a surge from that? Have you seen customers increasing those sorts of tools in the customers that you work with?
I think that the majority of customers that we work with, certainly in the UK, all have got systems.
Yeah.
I have a very strong sort of view that systems are only ever as good as the information that they have within.
Yes. And the people who run them.
They only work if they're managed and they're monitored.
Yeah.
And I think that that one of the challenges, certainly through the pandemic, has been, if you like, furlough, people leaving, getting new jobs, and the ability to manage those systems through a change of staff and a lack of time and ability within business to train new people to use the systems properly is a challenge today. Yep. And I think that all clients at the moment, require and need the support of the technology providers to get them back to where they were pre-pandemic in terms of the way their systems work.
Yeah, it's more acceptable now, isn't it, as well? Even this, we probably would have done this in a conference room before, and I know we've said it over and over, but everybody's much more used to using these tools, and it's just much more acceptable. I guess that kind of leads me nicely onto you, Carlos. Labor is the biggest cost, right, in any hospitality business. So would you mind just talking us through a little bit what your experience has been pre-pandemic and now, and how Workforce Solutions will help people reduce costs?
Yes, I think like Campbell was saying before, I think right now it's even more important to do a good forecast because based on a good forecast and sales forecast, you can do a better schedules. We also see another trend right now in the market is the trend of trying to cope with the shortage of people that we have in the market. Yeah. I hear it every time with every single customer, and I see a trend of trying to give good shift to the employee as a way to attract talent and to retain talent in the company, which gives or turns the scheduling solution even more important right now, because if you try to give good schedules or good shift to your employees at the same time that you try to accommodate a fluctuating demand with peaks during the lunchtime, during the dinner, having a digital solution is even more important. So that's definitely another trend that we are seeing in the market at the moment.
Yeah. Right. Couldn't agree more. So attracting the right people and then using technology to be able to balance the two things of keeping up with demand and lots of customers, or downsizing customers and making sure that the staff and the customers taken care of in that equation.
Absolutely. What we're seeing that right now is not just a matter of minimizing costs, but maximizing happiness across the employees, or trying to balance both of them. That's...
Hallelujah. It's a nice new trend to have, right? After, yeah. And how? So, I mean, you work with some customers that are absolutely enormous, Carlos, and globally, as you talked about. How are they doing that really well? What are the things that you're seeing, and what tools are they using to help them achieve that difficult balance that you've just described?
Yeah, well, I think that most of them, or if not, they're just throwing at the spreadsheets and turning into digital solutions, laying on algorithms and artificial intelligence as the only way to cope with these so complex problems of trying to forecast demand or try to accommodate the right people at the right time.
Yeah.
And also there's also a tendency of trying to find the best solution at every aspect of the business, based on the hypothesis that there's not a single solution that can cope and covers every single aspect. So the integration is even more important right now. And there is also a trend to recognize that the data is owned by the customer, not by the suppliers. So we have to, and that's an important shift, isn't it, Peter?
Yeah, definitely. We see that all the time.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
Sorry,
no, both of you, either of you, please comment. So what's that shift that you've seen there, Carlos? And what do you mean by that?
Yeah, well, basically before the suppliers, as developers, we tend to own the data and to, let's say, put some barriers and difficulties to share this data across different solutions. But right now, the shift is the data, the ownership is the customers, 100%. So we have to make sure that these data flow seamlessly between solutions. So they can choose what they want.
And also between different suppliers, because my experience that you want to use your purchase power as much as possible. That means that if you control the data, you can also kind of purchase or negotiate who is going to do what with that data. So what supplier will do this part of my business? Should I insource it or outsource it? So you get a large flexibility in that if you own the data and can let it flow and it's not locked into a specific supplier or
that's
so
interesting.
Well,
yes, I've heard a lot actually this week in particular. You mentioned, Campbell, the challenges you've got with your 3 big meetings you had this week, and it was similar. And data and the BI and business intelligence piece is the thing that I'm hearing a lot. But it's a challenge, Carlos, because you'd have most people that we work with, or that Carlos has referenced, Campbell rather has referenced, they do use multiple different systems. So how can that integration be achieved so that you don't lose all the efficiency that you're trying to get by implementing systems, by having to log into 5 different ones? How is that best achieved?
Well, first of all, I think that we have to recognize that every vendor has 1, 2, or 5 specialties, but we cannot cover everything. And that's a difficult move because we tend to think that we do everything perfectly, which is not the case. And then after that, we have to expose the data openly to others without charging or without implying big costs for the customer. That's in my opinion, the 2 things that we have to achieve.
Yeah, well said. So we've only got a couple of minutes left. I told you this would go really, really quickly, right? I think we always think it's going to take ages. Campbell, can I come to you to say we've had a really interesting conversation today, and I want to hear more about food costs and what the advice that you would give. Any other comments from you or helpful advice that you would pass on that you're saying to your customers every day?
Gosh, that's a good question that isn't necessarily easy to answer quickly, but I think it's really, really important to note that we live in sort of an ever-changing world at the moment. The majority of suppliers that are out there are in business because they are good at what they do, and I think that they've gone through a 2-year pandemic, and if they weren't actually good at what they did, they wouldn't have survived those 2 years. And in so many conversations that I have had over the years, people will turn around and say, "Well, I've used that supplier before; they're no good." Now, they may not have done a good job for you 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, but I guarantee that whatever was in place 5 years ago is not in place today. Things change on a regular basis with the supplier network that is out there. And I would encourage everybody to keep a very, very open mind in terms of looking at the supplier network that can service their needs in terms of quality, service and delivery, and don't hold on to grudges from what may have happened previously. It's tough out there, and to look after your business as effectively as you can, you really need to keep an open mind.
That's well said. And any business, I guess, that was pre-pandemic, most businesses will look very different now, because we've talked a lot about it today, but everybody had to pivot, that annoying word that everybody used in the pandemic, but everybody had to, customers, suppliers, and it's a different world now. Peder and Carlos touched on it with the whole, what people, customers, staff, everybody's looking for is more work-life balance and more focus on well-being. Our perspective on the world has changed. So that's a really good point. Actually hadn't thought about that before. So very well said. Peder, anything from you?
Ooh, in general, you mean? Or
yeah, comments. Anything that you would like to add? Any like final comments for everyone joining today to talk about?
I think one thing is that it's about who the user is. I think we talked about that. It's not about the software. It's about what people do when they use the software or the way they work. And the people that produce software, they look like me, but the ones using it maybe look like you, Ellie, but some years younger.
Nice
so it's people that are the digital and mobile from birth, basically. So I see that it's kind of that has changed. That it's previously was the IT department of people like me pushing solutions, and users like no. Now it's the opposite. It's like, why can't I get the simple app for this? And IT is like, well, we'll be working on it. So listen to the users and give them what they want.
And do you know what? It's actually, that's also being driven by the decision makers now, right, as well, is that's what they're saying, is it's not about what we want, and actually it's about how is the user going to engage? Are they actually going to
will they use it? Will they use it? Will they like it?
Yeah. Very well said. And Carlos, I'm going to finish on you. Anything that you would like to add on the topic, or any final comments?
Well, I think we've covered everything. The only thing I would add is if right now the world is even more complex than before, and the only way to cope with complexity is, as Campbell, with technology. That's I think that's very needed. And also, technology is not the final thing. As Campbell said before, the quality of the information that we get into this tool is vital, because otherwise they won't work.
Yeah.
And that's as the only way to do more with less, which is the final answer that I would give to the people that listen to us.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Been really interesting. I'm going to put the link to the blog that the team wrote in this chat. And for anyone that wasn't able to join live, there'll be a recording available. So we'll make that available to everyone after today. Just to end with, thank you very much again, Campbell, Peder and Carlos, for joining us in your very busy weeks. I hope everyone has a nice Friday. It's sunny here in Scotland, which is highly unusual. So we're going to go enjoy the sunshine. Have a nice afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye, thank you.